So I actually wasn't intending on making this video, but in the middle of making my Final Fantasy 1 review, I received this in the mail. I found this on Amazon for a really cheap price. It was like 14 bucks, and this is the official novelization of Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3. It's about 182 pages long, and I figured, you know what, I just finished up Final Fantasy 1, making a review of the game, I might as well see what Square has published as far as an official novelization goes. So without further ado, let's talk about the official novelization of Final Fantasy 1. So this entire story collection is called Final Fantasy 1, 2, 3 Memory of Heroes, and it's written by Takashi Umemura. I had to make sure I said that right because I suck at reading Japanese names. Like I said, it consists of Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3 as novelizations, and I read through the very first one, so that's basically going to be the only thing that we're going to cover here. But throughout this video, I'm going to put up videos and pictures of pages and little dialogue stuff that I'll talk about later on, so just keep that in mind. This isn't going to be a super exciting visual experience. I'm just going to kind of talk about this book. First things first, I want to talk about the good, and I'm gonna kind of structure this like how I structure my video game reviews as well. We're gonna go through the things that I thought were good, the things that I was kind of mixed about, and the stuff that I thought was pretty bad. So let's talk about the good real fast. And really the whole goal of this short story of Final Fantasy 1, it's only like 47 pages long. Like, it's really short. You could blast through it in like a day. That's exactly what I did. I think it took me like 2 or 3 hours just of, you know, hanging out with my family and just every now and then picking up the book. I finished it really fast. If you're gonna pick up this book, just understand it's a pretty short read, so it's brief. You get the whole idea of the narrative structure of Final Fantasy 1, but really the main goal of this particular short story is to add characterization to the playable characters in the video game. I'm gonna leave a link up here for my Final Fantasy 1 review that I just published, so if you haven't seen it already, go ahead and watch that. But in that review, I mentioned how in the story structure, it's not a character-focused video game. It's a game that's designed to kind of just give this classic RPG fantasy feel for just a world with goblins and monsters and some time travel sci-fi elements. That's kind of where its main goal is the world building aspect of it. So this book doesn't really include much of that world building goodness that the game has, and instead focuses on the characters themselves. It actually even gives you official canon names for these 4 main characters, and the official canon party of this story is a warrior, a thief, a white mage, and a black mage. The warrior's name is Cetro, the black mage's name is Teal, the white mage's name is Flora, and the thief's name is Zauver, Z-A-U-V-E-R. I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce that. In my head, I think I just said Zauver, and I didn't really like that. And in this short story, you actually do get a fairly interesting little look at the character of Sid as the manufacturer of the airship that you ride in the game and that the characters ride in this short story. So I thought that was actually really interesting. I liked that a lot, actually. That itself was probably my favorite part of this book, was understanding maybe who Sid is a little bit more. But as far as the good goes, I mean, that's kind of it. Other than, you know, this is kind of a story designed specifically for people who played Final Fantasy 1. If you played the first Final Fantasy game, you'll get a kick out of all of the little references and the names and the locations and the mages casting their spells and stuff like that. It's a little cheesy. Like, if you're looking at it objectively, yeah, as a standalone story, if you have no idea what Final Fantasy is, you never played Final Fantasy 1, as a book itself, it's not fantastic. But as a supplemental piece of Final Fantasy 1, the game, if you've played it, you'll have some enjoyment just from saying, oh, it's Final Fantasy. But let's move on to the mixed, because like I said, as a short story itself, as a standalone piece of media. It's not very great. I mean, it's fine. It tells a story that's understandable. It's easy to follow. I would assume. Like I said, I'm coming at it from the perspective of I've played the first Final Fantasy game. I know what is going on here in the story pretty well. But also, like I said, this is a story that's designed on kind of giving some characterization to your characters in the story, not so much about building the world and explaining the lore and everything that's going on. So one thing that I was kind of so-so on is the battle scenes, all the action and the combat that happens here in this story. Really, you only have 5, maybe 6. I think you have 6 total action sequences in this short little story, which, you know, is a fair, and for a story that's only 47 pages long, to have 6 whole action sequences. You can definitely tell that they started off with a pretty clear idea of how they wanted to have action go down, right? As the fights kind of continue, the action sequences become a little bit more dull, a little bit more bland. It kind of feels like maybe the author got a little tired of writing all of these action sequences, going into all of the detail that could be happening between these heroes and the villains and stuff like that. I was a little frustrated by it just because I was like, man, you know, I think the action kind of started off a little strong. It's honestly a little graphic. I wouldn't say that this is necessarily like a children's story. Like you have lots of impalement and pretty horrific things happen to not only the characters, but the enemies as well. So it's not like it's super toned down as far as what's going on, but it also just kind of seems like as the story continues to go, it's like the author just kind of got tired of explaining. Oh, he just kind of was like, and then they defeated the enemy. Good job. And like I said, there's only like 6 battles, and I guess I'll just spoil it. I mean, this is based off of an incredibly old video game, and it's not a great, but I doubt many people are even going to pick this up. And honestly, I mean, I'm not really spoiling anything. Basically, the first battle happens against Garland. The next 4 battles are of the 4 fiends, and then the final battle is against Chaos, or Garland again. So those are your 6 battles that you do. Any battle sequence that happens to goblins or monsters in caves and stuff like that, that's all it says. It's like, and then they battled some monsters in a cave, and it's a little underwhelming. It's kind of, I don't know, I wasn't a huge fan of that. But like I said, whenever the action is being described and explained, it's kind of exciting. It's short-lived, right? So it's like, man, I wish it kind of went longer. So I was pretty mixed on just combat as a whole in this story. So let's move on to the bad. And like I said, I guess I'll reiterate it again. This is not a story that's really written for anybody who doesn't know what Final Fantasy is. This is for Final Fantasy fans. So for some reason, if you're watching this and you have no idea what Final Fantasy is, or you never played any of the games, you know, this is definitely not going to be for you. I would not recommend it. So if you've played Final Fantasy 1, you will quickly realize that they have basically cut everything from the video game. There's no scene where you go to that town with the pirates or anything like that. You don't talk to any of the elves, really. You don't talk to any of the dwarves. Like, you have some names mentioned here and there, like Matoya, but I'm pretty sure you don't really get much of a scene with her either, if I remember correctly. Most of this is just incredibly forgettable. Man, one thing that I'll just jump to this right now because I just thought of it and it just pissed me off in my head. But Zauver, the thief, he is written to be a character who is supposed to be kind of sly, you know? Like, you think of the stereotypical Dungeons and Dragons thief character. They're kind of the comedic relief. They're kind of like doing stuff behind the scenes. You don't know if you can really trust them, you know, but they got your back and they'll save the day regardless. You know, he's the stereotypical thief character. And I'll put some shots here on the screen because I just, like, from page 1 till the end of the book, if Zauver is speaking, or if somebody says anything to him, or he notices anything, it's always followed up by, and then he smirked, and then he gave a wry smile, and then he chuckled a little bit and gave a little smile. Zauver perhaps twitched the ends of his lips a little bit in a smile. It's like the entire time they just want to just hammer it into your brain that this guy is just smiling and just chuckling and just smirking to himself all the time and just smirks at everything. He's a smirking character, and oh my god, it was so annoying. Like, honestly, the characterization, even though that's what this story is going for, it's like, man, these characters talk to each other, and I just hate it. Like, they very clearly did not really want to go into too much detail about these characters, how their relationships are with one another as they're traveling. One of the biggest plot points in this story is that these characters don't know what's going on. They don't know how they got there. They just kind of woke up in a field one day and they got these crystals that they're clutching onto. And they're off to go find out what the deal is. That's essentially like the main plot. They arrive at a town and basically someone sees them and is like, oh, the crystals, you gotta go see the king, which, fair enough, that's kind of how the game starts as well. A lot of the beginning of the portion of the game, of the story in the short story, follows the game pretty closely, but as soon as the king is like, okay, be on your way, go do your 4 Warriors of Light stuff, you know, bring the crystals back to peace or whatever, you can tell that after that, they kind of were just like, well, I guess we'll just talk about them fighting the 4 fiends and bringing the light back to those crystals, and then we'll have a big showdown. And then even that showdown towards the end, this is another thing I hated. Dude, it was so anticlimactic. Everything is just all happening all at once, and you'd think that for a story that is trying to give context and explain characterization a little bit better, you'd think that they would really, I don't know, maybe make this feel like a fulfilling ending to some degree. And they flopped pretty hard on that. So overall, I was just not a fan of this book. But this is also just coming from someone who loves to read. I listen to a lot of audiobooks when I'm working. I like to have physical copies of books. I'm a big reader, audiobook listener. I like stories, I like books. And so not only looking at this as a Final Fantasy fan where I can appreciate some of the stuff going on here and there in the story, overall, just as a standalone book, even if you are a Final Fantasy fan, I honestly don't think I could really recommend it. If you are just someone like me who just likes to have the physical media though, I think just as a collector's piece, this is a pretty cool thing to have. But as a structured story, it's not great. Even though one of my complaints about the original Final Fantasy is that the story's fairly weak, it's pretty basic, which is, you know, it's understandable. It's an old school JRPG. I'm actually still pretty positive on the original story. Even though I find it to be kind of weak, I like the story in the original Final Fantasy game. And I would say that even though we have a novelization of the first Final Fantasy game, I would still say that the story in the game is better than the story of the novelization. So that's pretty much it. Do with this review what you will. Let me know down in the comments below, have you read the Final Fantasy novelization? Have you played Final Fantasy 1? Go ahead and let me know in the comments below. And while you're down there as well, go ahead and leave this video a like, hit subscribe, ring the bell. I figured that this would just be kind of a fun video to make, and like I said, I really wasn't expecting to make a video like this, so let me know down below if you like this sort of thing. Maybe there's other stories published by Square Enix that have, you know, novelizations, manga, whatever. I'm totally open to looking at that and reviewing all of that. One thing that this book actually does have at the end is a little promotional piece for Final Fantasy Type 0, the manga, which is written by the same author who did this book. So I wasn't a huge fan of this book, so hopefully the manga is a little bit better. I'm not sure. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts about all that. But anyways, that's gonna do it for this video. I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.